Welcome to Cooking with Curtis. I'm Nick.
Well, welcome everyone to this episode of Technique Tuesdays. This is my friend, Nick Vasquez, professional chef. I really always sort of enjoyed just working with you and BSing with you over the line. And I really enjoyed the cooking culture at Heirloom, the restaurant that we both worked at. So when I had this idea for the new series for the Technique Tuesdays, this is the first episode that I had planned, and Nick was the first person I thought of.
Shucks. Been a professional chef for plenty of years. Curtis invited me over to do this knife video, and now I'm super excited. What we're gonna kind of go over is just general knife care and maintenance, from basically when you pull your knife out of the drawer, your block, to potentially maybe even needing to resharpen it. You can basically do anything in the kitchen with a knife and a spoon, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
So we got our knife. First things first, just general knife care. When you're storing your knife, you're gonna want to keep it in a knife sheath.
Yes.
We've got a nice little clip-on sheath for these. There are slide-on sheaths as well. They're very simple things, but let me tell you, Curtis, it'll save you a lot of pain in the future, in the long run.
Keep your sheaths.
Yep.
My microplane, my veggie peeler, anything that comes with the sheath, like, save that sheath.
I've cut myself more times reaching into my knife box to grab a knife than I have actually using my knives. What you kind of want to do is just give your knife a quick little rinse, quick little wipe with a little wet damp towel, dry it off really quick, just make sure that it's clean. And then you want to test the sharpness. What I do is I like to simply draw my finger very gently across the blade. And you should kind of hear this interesting, and you'll get used to the sound and kind of be able to understand it, but you'll almost hear like it's a ring, almost.
Yep, it is. And you're looking for a little bit of resistance, too. If it rolls off the edge, that means it's too dull.
Another option is, too, is you can kind of drag it across your thumbnail.
I don't know if I'm that brave.
Every time you pull your knife out, I like to touch it to the honing steel. Curtis has borrowed me his nice vintage honing steel, I'd say.
That was my dad's when he went to culinary school.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Just your good old-fashioned, everybody's probably seen these in every grandparent's house ever.
You're just you're polishing the edge.
Yep.
This is not a sharpener. You're just making your edge true.
I tend to hold the steel in front of me, put the knife at I don't know, I'd probably say like a soft, like 15 to 20 degree angle, and let the weight of the knife do the work. You don't really press hard. I pull it towards myself. They'll teach you to never do that in culinary school. A lot of these things have guards, and that has saved my thumb many times. But I usually just get a couple of rhythms. I usually go 4 swipes on one side, 4 swipes on the other. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I like to kind of finish it off by doing another 4, and then turn the blade away from me and pull back for another couple, just to kind of even that blade edge out. If you want to do it evenly on both sides so that your knife is sharpened together at the same rate.
At an even point.
Yep.
Yeah. Can I show you something that my dad always told me? Hold your steel like that, because when you're coming down with the knife, and if you miss, this sucks, but this is a trip to the emergency room.
Ooh, that's a good one.
What happens when we need something more than just the honing?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Curtis. My Pee Wee hockey coach once said, soft hands, concentration, not strength. You don't want to push the knife ever onto the stone when you're sharpening it. You want to just kind of let the weight of the knife do the work. You want to just gentle. Sharpening a knife should be very, I like to think of it as feng shui. You get in your groove, it's very much feel and energy.
And it's the same with cutting with a knife. You generally want the knife to be doing your work. There's some things you need to put some muscle into, like a whole watermelon or something like that. But generally you want the knife to be able to do most of the work.
You run into the most issues when you're forcing a knife to do something that it doesn't really want to do.
And that's why a dull knife is so dangerous.
Exactly. You're trying to cut that tomato, you're pushing, it rolls off, it rolls into your finger.
Yep. It's not sharp enough to cut the tomato, but it's sharp enough to mess you up.
Absolutely.
If you'd like to see a more extended version of this interview and demonstration with more conversation, more shop talk, I'm going to post that on my Patreon account. So if you want to support this show directly, I'm going to put the link in the description below. I start releasing my exclusive Patreon content August 1st, 2022. Patreon supporters of any level will get ad-free content a day before it comes out, so head on over to patreon.com/self-serving-skillet. Check it out.
This is just a Wüsthof brand Whetstone that I purchased, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. The gray side, as you can see, is much more worn down. This side, white side, looks almost untouched. The white side is, I believe, is like a 4,000 grit, 3,000 grit. So this is really, really fine. Curtis, if you draw your finger across there,
that's the polishing side.
That's the polishing side. And then this one is obviously going to be a little more porous. This side is about 1,000 grit. This side is what I use to what we call set your edge. This will enhance your blade and make it last longer. This one will just get it sharp.
How much do you want to spend on a good whetstone?
I think this one was probably like $70.
Okay.
So if I went back and bought a new one, I would probably purchase one that's closer to 600 to 800 grit on one side, and maybe like a 2,000 grit on the other side.
There's no shame in sending your knives to a professional if that's what you want to do. If this is just absolutely is not your cup of tea, please do that rather than cut yourself up. I'd rather have you have a sharp knife. The cost, however, last time I sent all my knives out to be sharpened, it was about $40. And what do you get back? You get back sharp knives that are going to get progressively duller, and you have no knowledge. So if you do that 3-4 times, you've already bought a whetstone. If you polish your knives 3-4 times on the whetstone, you gain knowledge and experience. If you're afraid of it, don't start off with a really nice knife. Get a good but inexpensive knife and practice. Use that to practice and get good at this.
Yeah, I actually tell all of my cooks, you're going to destroy your first knife. That's just the if, ands, or buts about it. I actually have, this is probably my second knife, so that's why it's not destroyed. With these, you have to soak them in water for about 10 to 15 minutes. You'll see when you put these in, they'll bubble. It's just the porous stone sucking up the water. And then that basically just facilitates your knife sliding smoothly across the stone, getting a nice even sharpen. This is a whetstone holder. It is by no means necessary. What you can also do, this is shelf lining material that you can buy at any sort of like Ace Hardware. It's just grippy. This works as well. Put your whetstone on there, you're good to go. Otherwise, what we typically do in the kitchen is just a wet towel.
Yeah, and that works very well for a cutting board as well.
Yep. That's actually pro tip. Is the wet towel under the cutting board. You want to have it about waist height, somewhere where you're comfortable enough to move your arms. If you're too high, you're going to mess with your angle. If you're too low, you're going to be adjusting your hands, and it just doesn't work. You want a nice comfortable working height. And then all I'm going to do is pull this out of the water, and I'm going to start with the coarse side first versus the polishing side. So, and then what I like to do is I like to start with the edge facing me. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to basically run your knife this way, pushing while you push away from you, and then lifting it up ever so slightly to pull back so you don't sharpen that blade, that edge, the other way at the same time. And then what my chef taught me is you use 2 fingers as kind of your guiding fingers on your blade. You make a little arrow or finger gun, as it were. Pew. Yep. Thumb at the heel of the knife, and then this one at kind of the spine, on top of the spine. And this knife is going to be your angle setting hand. This hand is going to be your angle setting hand. So as you can see there, obviously you rotate your wrist, the angle changes. Curtis and I were talking about this. There are a lot of different ways to find your knife's angle. The higher the angle, the wider?
The more acute?
The more acute your angle. The more acute your angle, the sharper your knife will be, but the more brittle it will be. Anywhere your fingers are touching your knife, that's where it's going to sharpen more than if it's not. So if I have my fingers like this and I'm going like this, the pressure is on these parts of my blade. It's going to be kind of an uneven sharpen. And then all you're going to do to find my edge, I put my knife flat on the cutting stone, right? Or on the sharpening stone. And then if you kind of angle it up, you'll kind of feel when it almost like clicks. Like you'll feel when the edge kind of sits on the stone. So for mine, it's kind of right about there. And you'll feel it. You'll feel it all of a sudden. The line between your stone and knife will be almost imperceptible. We can discuss all sorts of methodologies for these things. They sell guards, they sell guides that you put on your stone that physically is like, this is a 20-degree angle. I saw something on the internet where you take the length of your blade, you divide it by 2, you do something else, and it tells you how many quarters to stack up underneath your edge. So there are a ton of ways to do it. I think of knife sharpening as more of a feng shui, connecting with your utensils, you know, kind of putting that energy and time and effort back into what you're doing. Just kind of a holistic method, if you will.
Yeah.
And then all I'm going to do is very gently just start from one end, go forward, lift up, basically just lift up my fingers. I don't even like physically lift up the knife, because the less you mess with this hand, the less chance you have of messing with the angle of your knife. So I just push it forward and basically just pull these fingers off, pull it back, fingers back down, push forward. And I typically do, like 4 strokes with my fingers in one position, and then I slide it down about an inch. 4 strokes or so with my fingers in another position, slide it down an inch. And as you're going, the good thing to kind of remember is you have to look at the angle of your knife. So as I'm going, I almost want to try and keep my edge parallel to the line, or
Sure.
sorry, to the stone. So my hand is going to rotate as I go through my sharpening process. My right hand is going to be a little more further ahead of my left hand at the tip of the knife versus at the end of the knife, where it's going to be.
That's how you account for the belly.
Exactly. Thank you. The belly. Yeah. Like I said, just take your time. You know, I kind of get into a little groove where I just kind of go a couple of strokes, right? Slide down the knife, couple of strokes, right? Slide down the knife, all the way down. And then when you get to this heel here, you can kind of dig into that heel a little bit, because you want to make sure that you cut that edge right there. I got my pressure on my knife, as you can kind of see. You might be able to see there started to be a little discoloration of the water. That is my knife getting sharper. You're basically removing metal every time you do this. So, you know, if you sharpen your knife on your stone every single day, you're going to wear out your knife quicker than if you don't.
Sure.
So I've got a couple of good passes. I don't know if you can see it, but you know, you can kind of see as the coloration, you'll notice the coloration start to kind of change on the edge of your blade. And you can see where you're sharpening your knife. So that's kind of a good guide, is every once in a while just look. See how it looks. Does it look even? Does it look, are you getting, you know, scuffs on the interior of your blade because your angle's too high? I always just go for a good sharp edge regardless of whether or not it's beautiful.
Function over form.
Yeah. But also there have been a couple of times where I've taken that extra 20 minutes to it just depends on you know what I mean? You don't have to spend an hour and a half doing this.
Sometimes you got to take some pride in your work, and sometimes it's good enough, you know?
Yeah, sometimes you don't need it right, you just need it right now. So
yeah.
So I'll give a couple of swipes on this, And then what I like to do before I switch to the other side is kind of get a couple of full swipes, right? Just very gently, just kind of even out all of that individual pushing you did with a couple of just even strokes, just very gently. And then for the other side, now you never want to push your edge into the stone. So that's why when we're pulling back, we don't put any pressure, because you don't want to cut into the stone. So when I flip my side, what I'll end up doing is I will pull towards me for this edge. So I'll once again kind of make sure I got it even, kind of feel that lock, that click, and then just very gently pulling, moving my fingers down the blade as I go.
And it's probably easier to make sure that your dominant hand is always the one doing that one job, rather than trying to be ambidextrous and flipping your blade over.
Yeah.
You know, you're probably not going to get the same edge.
Yeah. So, and when you're setting your edge, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to focus on one side of your knife for the first couple of passes. What you're going to want to do is, if I'm like fully setting this edge, this is a dull knife, I'm going to work on this side until when I'm drawing my thumb across the knife, I can physically feel the metal curved over the knife like that. You're setting the edge, and basically what you're doing is you're sharpening the one side so that the metal is hanging over the other side of the knife. That's called the burr. And then when you flip it over, you take off that burr, and it makes the edge way more acute immediately. And then once you take that burr off, your knife's basically sharp. And then that would be the time when we would flip our knife over and do the polishing aspect. So I'm starting to feel a little bit of a burr there. And this one is actually, this knife's pretty well taken care of. So this is kind of an abridged version of what would happen if you did need to sharpen your knife. So we'll got our little burr, right? So I'm feeling the edge, and I can feel a line on this side of the blade. Now all I'm going to do is flip it over and take that burr off. All right, just a little pressing, pulling towards me, letting go, and pushing the knife forward. Pressure coming back, nothing going forward. So as you can see, you can kind of hear that already. It's way more pronounced. And that wasn't much, right?
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, then what I like to do is to try and take a couple of good full action swipes on both sides. The idea being you're kind of just letting that stone even out any sort of differences in angle from the process. And you're just letting those angles kind of be friends. So I'll get a couple swipes like that, pull back. A couple of swipes, pull back. And now if you can hear that.
That sounds nice.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad, right? And so it's going into it's cutting into my thumb. It's not my thumbnail. It's not, sliding. I'm not getting any. I've got a pretty decent edge on this right now. So now I'm switching to my polishing side, the white side that you can see has obviously had way less wear and tear. And that's simply because it's you're only polishing with this side. You're not, cutting metal with this side as much as the other side. So this one, same exact process. This one is basically just going to make my edge just beautiful and shiny and just get that thickness of that edge just further and further and further down. And then obviously the more time you spend on these, this is the difference between pretty sharp and crazy sharp.
Yeah.
Is that polishing.
Makes your knife crispy.
Yeah. So, and it's the same exact process, right? So this is the kind of nice one where it's just real feng shui. It's smooth, it feels good. You're just going, get your Marvin Gaye, your, you know, your
light a candle.
Yeah, whatever you're into, you know, put on some music and just kind of, you know, this is the best part where it's fine, so you don't really have to worry so much about really screwing up your knives. Like, this is just the part of the part where you just make it beautiful and really, really sharp. So you might not be able to see it the best, but you can kind of see right there that polished edge right along. It's not perfect, but you can kind of see now, like right here, you can kind of see it gets polished, and it'll if you've got a high enough grit and you do this enough, it'll get like mirror finish, which is actually kind of one of the things you can when you've got the time and you want to, you can really just have fun. And then we're gonna switch it over. We're gonna get this other side too, just so we can get an even cut on it, or an even angle on both sides. Practice makes perfect, and that's why we said you're probably gonna mess up your first knife a couple of times, but also if you mess up your first knife, it's not forever. You're done sharpening your knife. What you're gonna wanna do is, you know, wipe it off with just like a damp paper towel.
You don't want that burr that you just took off to end up in your food.
Yep, exactly. Like I said, feng shui.
Yeah.
Soft hands, concentration, not strength. We got our knife, got our tomato. Hopefully it's sharp.
There you go.
Not too bad, right? Now,
Not
we can,
bad at all.
You can't, I mean, that's all it took, really. It's not really that tough.
It's a beautiful slice of tomato.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful
that's
slice.
actually not bad. Just having a sharp knife, it'll make your cooking like literally just that much more enjoyable. Cooking should be fun. It shouldn't be stressful, but having the right tools and taking care of them, I guess, makes your life easier.
Lets you know how to be in control of the danger. All right, so just to I haven't sharpened this knife in a while. This is the one I generally use on the show, and I didn't sharpen it for a while for specifically this purpose. I really want to demonstrate the importance of a sharp knife here. So this, for all intents and purposes, is a dull knife, right? It'll get the job done, but Nick's putting a lot more effort into it.
You know what, Curtis? I don't even want to try and cut this tomato with this knife anymore.
Yeah, exactly. No, use yours. It's much better.
Look at that.
Nice, smooth, even pieces, effortless. If you're going to cut yourself, you're going to cut yourself with that.
Absolutely.
Well, Nick, thanks for coming over and showing us how to do this. This has been great. I really appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And wipe your knives off when you're done. Put them away dry and sharp, and they will be nice and sharp when you take them out the next time.
Exactly.